Extreme demons. They've been a thing for quite a while. Some may say for too long. In the never-ending quest to find the hardest level ever made, there has been this single question asked time and time again. That question being, isn't this about finding the hardest level and not the best? Why can't I just slap a hard layout together and just get them thrown on the list because of my 100 verifiers I happen to have on speed dial? Why do I even have to get them rated to even have them on the list? Some may say that reason is obviously because if unrated levels are allowed on the list, the demons list will be completely saturated by capitalist garbage. This rule has single-handedly kept a lot of trash off the demons list, but that doesn't stop people from trying. For years, one of the most noteworthy glitterbugs has been a small underground player by the name of Carmel, who takes pleasure dumping garbage on the demon list like massive fecal grenades. And on one lone day on Christmas 2019, he actually took a break from polluting the Geometry Dash servers with such classics as Conical Depression, Phobos, and Low Def. He broke new ground with his brand new Extreme Demon, where he took some creative liberties by revisiting the really discussed update on 1.0. Some may say that it is difficult to find any other levels that reflect on the long forgotten styles on this unknown period of Geometry Dash. That of course being a joke because they've been fucking everywhere for years. After all, it's just an easy way to make a glorified layout with weak pulses and claim it's a style while simultaneously pretending that you're even in the same league as FH3CS by Durian Head. But unlike most of those 1.0 levels, Crazy actually made a level that people cared about for more than a week. And as literally every single topic I've talked about so far has evidently proven, when there is something in this community that gets popular, there's always someone that comes around to piggyback off their success. Well, it's time to see who it is this time around. Oh, looks like it's a newcomer this time. A new creator by the name of Jacob Sucks. Apparently this is his first full level. Damn, there's some impressive community outreach for his first. I guess I better watch the verification video to see how he achieved all of this so quick.
Disappointment in the game of life!
Oh, alright, it's just XO again. Seems like people have been treating this like an actual sequel despite it not being endorsed by Crazy himself. I guess that makes sense considering that this one looks exactly like the original. This level is much more lively and makes more use of pulses and actually acknowledges that color triggers exist. Surprisingly enough, Arrow's actually made it into the big leagues pretty well, which means as always with levels that are similar there's going to be endless debates about which one is better. Let's see what the community has decided. Oh. Nobody has covered this quite yet. Looks like I've got a first mover advantage. Ah, fuck, never mind. Oh, thank God, it's just a garbage replay level bundle. Oh, I guess since no one else decided on it, this is all my responsibility now. Ah, shit. Alright, where to start? Well, I guess music is a good place. After all, this game is based entirely around rectangles evading death accompanied by obnoxious dubstep. Both EXO and Arrow at the core have songs with a lot of similarities. The song you're hearing right now isn't actually the original most people playing the level are used to. The version that Crazy used in the level is a cover remade by Aaron Musselwhite, which as his name suggests, his muscles are in fact very white. To be honest, I actually think that this version is actually better than the original by Eden, mostly because of the chorus here. In the Eden version, they sound like they're about to blow out my headphones while listening to it, which sounds like an earthquake coming out of a pair of Apple Dirty Buds, while Aaron's remake is much more toned back, which makes my ears feel nice and comfy. But a big downside of it is how slow the goddamn thing is. The reason this doesn't work is because the song isn't really particularly intense. The EXO cover is more fitting for like, I don't know, a 5-star level, but not a top 40 demon. It's not exactly designed for any Geometry Dash level in mind, let alone for some towering intense challenge. Arrow on the other hand has a completely different case on its hands. It uses once again a song of the same name by another indie band, but unlike EXO it has a lot more variation in tempo which makes it much more suited for a Geometry Dash level. This really shows in Arrow because it really helps it to distinguish every single other part from each other. They all have their own personality if you will. In EXO, most of the parts beside the drops sort of become indistinguishable mush where parts don't have much of their own to give. I do have to say, I do like both of these songs, but Arrow is a simply better choice for a 1.0 level with the lack of decoration. You can't just rely on feel and atmosphere to carry a level alone. You need an expressive and lively song to make the level not seem flaccid and boring. Unless your name is Durian Head, you can't make a masterpiece with a mundane song and no decoration. Doesn't mean Crazy didn't do a decent job with the tools he chose though. If there's anything he's good at, it's sinking whatever pile of bricks he chose to decorate that month. He's just a big fan of making really fucked layouts. Speaking of fucked layouts, this sucks. I have no clue why both levels have so many off-screen jumps. It's a completely bullshit game mechanic that would get your average and medium demon delegated to the recent sections permanently, never to be seen again. Which is a pretty stupid double standard which only seems to apply to extreme demons. Because they're inaccessible to 11-year-old on the Pestilence taking shelter in their Geometrical Dominator fan club and never play any of these past 12%, which lets levels like Killbot get away with first-degree crimes against eyeballs. Not that they're all off-screen, a good majority of XO is normal functioning on-screen gameplay, which is better than hoping that you just happen to memorize level blindly. Same goes for Arrow for that matter, but both levels have this problem where you're actually enjoying the level for once and then the drop comes in to deliver you a swift kick to the balls. Most of the problems that XO has also apply to Arrow. I'm pretty sure Jacob just thought that sequel just meant take the entire level and make it again with not much originality to actually set it apart. Every single thing that's in XO is also an Arrow in some form. But most importantly, the multiple drops composed entirely out of painful off-screen jumps. That being said, Arrow isn't just a derivative clone. For example, the 4x speed parts, which aren't similar to anything in XO, besides the drops, which are almost a direct copy-paste job. But when you're playing, you don't actually give a fuck how original they are. The only real care you would have while going into any level would be whether it's fun or not. Well, to answer that, first of all, why the hell are you playing Extreme Demons or looking for fun? What the hell's wrong with you? Second of all, they're pretty much both Carmel levels. With little exception, the gameplay is gonna be terrible. I guess if you have hardy wanks to Mystic each night, these levels are gonna be heaps fun for you, but I tend to stop playing them after about 10 minutes to indulge on some of life's greatest treasures. Even as someone who purposely selects literally thousands of hours to play obscure garbage, I fucking hate this. Actually, let me paint a better picture for you. Crazy makes levels like someone placing a bunch of random objects in a plane and attempts to place a bunch of orbs to try to make the level possible. It's kinda like the recent section had a slightly more cohesion. This is a great way to make gameplay for something like a challenge. Hell, it even worked for me when he made Lit Fuse, a level that actually uses that type of gameplay to do something interesting rather than turning the whole thing into a massive sesh pit. The best parts of both levels are easily when they go as far out from the Carmel formula as possible and make more conventional gameplay. Not that unconventional gameplay is always bad per se. As you have probably figured out by now, I'm a big fan of F3HCS, but the difference between that and this is one of them plays like trying to open a can with a jackhammer. Look at the midsection of Arrow for example. Nice, straightforward gameplay, simple to read, heaps better than this bullshit. Neither of them have a whole lot to offer in terms of me not wanting to cave in my fucking skull. Well, I guess the only thing left I have to talk about here is decoration, which, yeah. These levels are basically two glorified layouts, so this might be a little tough. There are some pulses that have people jizzing their pants, but I'm not particularly impressed with the level having a few pulses. I don't see why anyone is impressed by grey objects lighting up temporarily. You can't just give a level praise for things that every single rated level since 1.9 has had. Alright, this is my tutorial on how to be a great Geometry Dash creator. So what you gotta do is you gotta grab this object, you gotta fucking grab pulse trigger and go black, and yeah, there you go, you win. I think I got my 5 featured levels. That's that easy, baby.
Now look at this.
But I do have to say, both levels understand that pulses and backgrounds are easily the best part of the level, and uses them quite a lot, and in the case of Arrow, way too fucking much. Jacob is clearly not an experienced creator, and you can easily tell how haphazardly chucked around some of these pulses are. It also explains why he thinks that it's even a remotely good idea to have seizure-inducing strobe lights in the drop. With little exceptions, they are almost always a terrible idea. Crazy knows how to keep it low-key with his big powerful pulses. They are almost never on backgrounds, only with the detail elements. Not that you shouldn't pulse blocks, but with how Jacob integrated them, they don't really look like a pulse, but instead more like this $10 torch I bought from Cashies. This is more obvious in the drop, where there's a large void with this big fuck-off arrow preparing you for a trip to the ER. Speaking of big fuck-off arrows, All the arrows in this level are just lazily slapped on, for I assume the only reason being because, I don't know, it's called arrow, therefore it must need arrows. Like in this part, for example, there's nothing in the background or the foreground, but there's plenty of arrows, that's for sure. A lot of the time he just gets a big clump of low opacity objects and just calls it decoration. $100 to whoever can tell me what the fuck this thing is. XO is much more refined with its low opacity backgrounds. Just like this section here with the breathing background, which I do like quite a bit. But then it's immediately followed up with this corridor, which is literally gameplay and fuck all else. This level relies a lot on the low opacity backgrounds, which for the most part are quite nice. But a lot of the time some parts of it overlap and it just looks a bit messy. I know a lot of it's probably intentional, but to me it looks like someone tried to bake a cake, but with flour substituted with paint. Some details in both levels are just weird, like these windmill turbines in this ball part. In Arrow, these dark columns that don't fit at all, where these clouds are just there. They don't actually do anything besides make the level laggy, which is quite impressive having such bad optimization that you somehow made a layout laggy. But then it's immediately followed by a drop that I actually do like quite a lot. I like the pulses, and the background effects are actually quite subtle, which I actually do like for a part like this. Which is immediately followed up with the final part, which is exclusive empty backgrounds and light switch flickering. XO's drops are much cleaner, and unlike Arrow you can actually tell them apart, with the first one being really dark and minimalist, and the second one having big fancy backgrounds with effects that don't look like a toddler made them on his way to preschool. Which is where Crazy's decoration skills actually come in handy. Believe it or not, when he doesn't make a massive clusterfuck, he can actually make something decently appealing. What I mean here is he has a lot of objective skill which isn't often used in practice. Luckily for us, this is one of those times, which means I definitely prefer the approach to decoration. Although not everyone are big massive losers who spend their weekends making video essays that for some reason consistently feature buckle your pants. So if you hit a wank off to pretty colours, I gotta say XO is definitely the better one, especially if you're epileptic. But out of the two of them, I would personally pick Arrow. The key being out of the two of them, because after this video I'm never going to touch either of these levels again. I would much rather play something like Ultraviolet or Cyber Chaos, two levels that actually succeed in areas which both XO and Arrow failed in. That thing being levels I actually want to play. Well, at least I can look at the levels. Yep. If there's anything for sure, I'm probably going to put both of these songs on my playlist after I'm finished with this video, because they're both pretty decent. And the levels on the other hand are just gonna stay in my saved levels forever. Even though these levels aren't great, I can say one really positive thing about them, and that thing being, at least they're both miles ahead of Killbot. Look at this thing. Jesus Christ.